And my question kind of flows. I'm concentrating really on the development of Taekwondo in the U.S. Master Young's questions are a little bit more worldwide.
Right.
So you're a renowned historian of Taekwondo. You're respected by all of the various Taekwondo ITF groups as well as the WT. Who were the early key players in Taekwondo development here in the U.S.? And Master Young, and we're all familiar, but for those that are going to be watching this, many people will not be familiar with some of these names. But in the U.S., who were some of the key players, and what was it like back then, and where are they now? And we're talking about Taekwondo in general, the various groups, or as the WT started here in the U.S., we've had a lot of development and conflict and pulling apart. So I'd love to hear some of the insight you have.
Sure. Okay. So since the United States is a big country, and since the United States was a benefactor, overseeing, supporting, help establishing, even running South Korea for 3 years after World War II ended, there's an extremely close relationship. So who was the first person to introduce Taekwondo to the United States? A lot of people don't know this, but a young colonel by the name of Chae Hung-hee, right? He came over in 1949-50. There was no Taekwondo then, so technically it was not Taekwondo, and he showed some basic Tang-soo-do, Kang-soo-do, essentially karate, Korean karate. So, but the first person to introduce it was Jun Rhee back in 1946, because he, as a young student, studied at the university level in San Marcos, Texas. So he taught, he not only did he interview Grandmaster Jun Rhee, but one of his students from there, Jose Cookie Reyes, who's the pioneer of Taekwondo in Dominican Republic. This gentleman came from an affluent family in Dominican Republic, so he was allowed to emigrate and study, get a visa to study here. And when he got his education here, he went back to his country, and guess who hired him? The American embassy, consulate, whatever that thing is in his country. He was very instrumental, by the way, along with Jun Rhee, getting General Choi's widow and one of his daughters out of South Korea when they held the family hostage. So that was where it first started to be taught. But again, it was not Taekwondo. It was karate or Korean karate. And it was very rudimentary. Fast forward to 1960, there's a gentleman I just went, not just, but a couple of years now, he's passed away, an iconic figure, Cho Sihak, or S. Henry Cho. He's the one that would host the very famous annual All-American Open at Madison Square Garden, like one of the premier sports facilities in the world, actually, He opened the first commercial school in the United States. We know Jun Rhee moved to Washington, D.C. And at that same time, there was people like Richard Chun in New York City. But all of these people that came, and the same thing in Europe, the first person that did Taekwondo in Europe, he was in Italy, and he went there as a student. And when the Goodwill Tour came around in '65, that's when he learned about Taekwondo and switched over. So he even predates Kwang Jae-hwa and Park Chung-soo going to Germany and the Netherlands, and Ri Ki-ha going to the UK. He doesn't get Park Sung-jae. He was a founding member of ITF. He was the one that introduced it to Yugoslavia, which is the first communist country. So my point is, the Koreans that went abroad not to teach. They went abroad to learn. Educational opportunity, employment opportunity. When they were there, what happened to coincide? The Eastern fighting arts coming to the West. So they capitalized on it. So please understand, the first ones that came over are these iconic pioneer figures that did great things for the martial arts, but they weren't Taekwondo. They may have later affiliated or went under the WTF or Kukiwan umbrella. And some, like Junri, went under the ITF umbrella. Jack Wong out in Oklahoma came under the ITF umbrella and WTF umbrella probably at the same time. He was a captain in the Rock Army 29th Infantry Division under General Choi. He hosted in 78 the third ITF World Championships. Second ITF World Championships. Third was Argentina. The second ITF World Championships in Oklahoma City. And he got a lot of trouble for that, but he did it because he believed in his commanding general and what he was doing. So, but again, he really wasn't ITF. So now, as I mentioned, my teacher, Kim Kwang-sung from Gwangju, same high school as Park Jung-tae, they knew each other. They had the same initial instructor, I believe, as well. But my teacher was teaching in Germany, Korean karate, and he ran into a KCIA member there. He was later ambassador to Malaysia. He was a deputy director to KCIA. He was a colonel, and he was a subordinate and a partner with General Choi. And in his mission, working overseas for the Korean government, he introduced the ITF to these people, and they would start signing up. And then, of course, what did they have to do? They had to do the ITF patterns. This was very important for Koreans to do. Why? Dangun, Dosan, Wanyo, Yugok, right? You're teaching kicking and punching. You're also teaching Korean history. You understand the propaganda value for this as a cultural tool? And who did that? Again, Chae Hung-hee, visionary. He's quoted as saying, even if Korea is invaded and occupied by a foreign power, never can the history of Korea be eradicated because it's been disseminated around the world through his Taekwondo. That is a powerful, powerful statement, gentlemen. So this is what's happening in the United States. My teacher comes over already knowing the ITF patterns because he learned them at a brief weekend seminar that the general did, and General Choi told me this in Germany or up in Canada or whatever, you know. But some of the ITF pioneers did settle in the United States. Nam Tae-hee and Han Cha-kyo in Chicago. I named them first because they're 2 and 3. If you look on the ITF website, you're going to see some really good historical information there, and it names the first 3 masters of Taekwondo: General Choi, Colonel Nam, Sergeant First Class Han Cha-kyo. It puts the Army serial number in there. It's really good information. I suggest people go there. Not all, but a lot of the pioneers are listed there. So they came and they were instrumental in the precursor of the USTF in setting that up. Hyo Cho, who had a series of books, very prominent. He came from, he was dispatched to India, so he was the pioneer in India, and then spent, I think, 6 months in Europe before he settled in Rhode Island. Then he went somewhere in the Midwest and eventually settled in Hawaii and is still teaching. A staunch ITF member, more so than Junri, did his own series of books. I have them also on that he did on the patterns, and I think he did 20 of them. Junri did only the 9 color belt patterns. So he's in Hawaii now. He was a prominent performer at Oklahoma City, the second ITF World Championships, teaching the ITF curriculum. You know, he broke away like the others when General Choi was doing more and more outspoken criticism of the South Korean government, caused them trouble. It also labeled him and them as communist sympathizers. The final straw was when he went to North Korea. Now, there's a Grandmaster Choi, Sunduk Choi in Arizona, Phoenix area, passed away a couple of years ago. He was on that really historic team in 1980 that introduced Taekwondo there, as well as Grandmaster Seraph, one of his students, Carl Nicoletti, and Brushka. He's now living in U.S. He might be a citizen now. I think he's in the D.C. area. He went representing Yugoslavia. Why did General Choi pick him? Yugoslavia, first communist country to ever train Taekwondo. So who did he bring to North Korea? All of the countries that opposed North Korea in the Korean War, right? So he's teaching the leader of North Korea, Kim Il-sung at the time, through Taekwondo, you can make friends with your enemies. Profound, visionary. And you don't have to worry, because communists are already doing it. Look at Yugoslavia. And anybody who knows history, Kim Il-sung and Tito had a very good relationship because they were united in pushback against the Soviets. Kim Il-sung was very adept at using Mao and Beijing to counteract Stalin and Moscow, you know. So these are that's why I say, when you want to know the history of Taekwondo, since it's so controversial with all this political drama and nonsense, you need to know the political context of the times that this historical development took place in. So ITF obviously came first, 1966, WTF 7 years later, 1973. So in the United States, what is the top dog? ITF. They were all doing the ITF patterns. First of all, there were no so-called WTF patterns until after the ITF patterns. And then if you remember, the Power Gate patterns were scrapped and the Taekwondo came later on. So there's a lot of flux, and ITF was pretty steady. But what happened was these people started leaving, these iconic figures like Nam Tae-hee and Han Chak-kyo. They were forced to leave. Grandmaster Earl Weiss traces his lineage to somebody that studied under Han Chak-kyo, you know, and that's the same thing what I did when my teacher left. I made the direct connection to USDF. So
I'm going to interrupt one thing. I wanted to put in one point. I had a really nice conversation with Che Jung-hwa many years ago, and I asked him who his instructor was, his primary instructor was, and he said a very personable person, very friendly.
Yes.
He says a very, very wonderful gentleman.
That's right.
My primary instructor, Han Chak-kyo.
That's right.
And I thought that was an interesting. I mean, he had other instructors as
Yes.
well, but he mentioned that he said he was the most giving person that he ever met. So I'm sure that's saying something. Anyway, just want to interject a little.
Yes, and you know, General Choi wanted Han Chak-kyo to marry his daughter.
Well,
Didn't work out, but guess what? He married General Choi's niece. And it was devastating when they separated. And Grandmaster Jung Woo-jin sponsored Han Chak-kyo to come to the ITF World Championships in Malaysia in 1994. So a lot of people don't realize that. He's in some of the pictures there. So that was a chance for them to reconcile. But yes, a wonderful man. And Kang Young-il was another one that would teach his son, as would Lee Won-sup from Sweden, because they were together in that historic second instructors course in North Korea. So yes, but that's very true. And so those people were here and they left. There were others, like I said, Kang Young-il came.
Sosei Cho was here in Miami too.
Yes, he came from Turkey to Miami. There's another one. Yes, he was Macho was the sponsor for the equipment in 1988, around that time frame. And again, that time frame, what's happening? The last military general was ending his rule in South Korea, and a transition was happening to civilian leadership. And in the 90s, the first civilian democratically elected president of South Korea happened. So things really, really started changing. So we had those people, Grandmaster Fabian Nunez, his teacher, Grandmaster Lee Yu-sun, settled in the Texas area, another iconic figure. Another one that was on the team from the United States, Suk Chung Kim, good friends with my teacher, very active today, has an own organization, still does the ITF patterns, has a nice following and a school in the New York area. So he was another one. Moon Sung Lee, Lee Byung Moo were others. There were tons of them, but for the most part, by the time the WTF came on the scene in '73, the change started happening. So back up, you asked what was the training like. The training was very, very rudimentary, very basic. You had Koreans that didn't speak the primary language of the natives. You notice I didn't say English in America, because this was the same thing all over the world, right? Koreans speak Korean, and if they're in Italy, they're not speaking Italian. They're grunting. They're grunting. So, and they would count, and they would have us count, and there would be little things that they would say. So the instruction not only was inefficient, there wasn't much substance to it. And when we would go to tournaments, they were open tournaments. But we didn't go to open tournaments. We only went to open tournaments run by Koreans. Why? The Koreans wanted to support each other. Plus, if we went and competed in harder competition, some of the way these other people did their forms, which is not a correct word, it's patterns, would really make ours look so basic because of the different things they did. So if you ever been to open tournaments, you see all the things they do to jazz it up. But I remember when I went to my first real open tournament, I said, what the heck is this? People with shorts and T-shirts judging? You know, you never saw General Choi without professional business attire. That's the military influence. I hated the fact when I became a trooper, I had to wear a tie. I was so relieved it was a clip-on. And the clip-on, because they don't want it to be used as a noose if somebody grabs it. They grabbed the clip-on. I said, because I still don't know how to make a tie. I'll be 66 in a couple of months. I can't make a tie.
Is that a clip-on right now?
No, I slide it up and down.
Okay, you got it. Someone else tied it for you. Now you just keep it there. Okay.
I slide it up and down. Colonel Nam Tae-hee gave me the greatest tie. And I wore it when they presented my PhD to me. And it was almost like the colonel's tie is protecting me against, you know, whatever. And his tie, it's got some gizmo where it's a perfectly formed knot, but you slide it up and down. It's not, it's manufactured that way. So the thing slides down on like a plastic thing. So but I digress. But the open tournaments were very, very, and the ones we went to were only ones run by Koreans because they wanted to support each other. And then in the 70s, we stopped with the karate stop match. You know, center referee, 4 judges. If it had enough for 4 judges, the referee would yell, stop. And they go to the judges, and if it was a majority, it was a point. And it was the first 2 points win or first 3 points win. Sometimes it'd be 2 points to the kick to the face, whatever. And that's right. Everybody has some kind of experience or remembrance of that. And then what happened was it switched to the WTF rules with the Hogu, the chest protector, and the full contact. So we went to the stop match tournaments and the WTF tournaments. Until 1984, the first time I met the general, he was the guest of honor at the General Choi's Cup in Bergenfield, New Jersey, suburb of New York City. Suk Jung Kim on that historic 17 was the host. I went there, Grandmaster Seraph was there, General Choi was there, and it's funny. One of the fathers of my black belts, I told him, can you grab the camera? When General Choi walks in, when he walks down, I'm going to stand this way. Catch him in the picture so it looks like we're together. And that was my only picture with the general until I'm in his house and all these other things all around the world. Now I have all these pictures of him. But I thought that'd be the first and only time. And I was too shy to go ask him for a picture. And I said, at least get me in the picture frame, you know? And I probably still have that somewhere. I have to look for it. But when I went to that tournament, I noticed something. ITF continuous sparring rules. This is 1984. So I went back to my teacher because he couldn't go because he couldn't be seen with the general, right? So I went and he goes, oh, I think he said original Taekwondo. And I said, wow, that was awesome. And then I asked him another question. Some big, tall American guy, oh yeah, I heard about him, you know? And he downplayed him because he wasn't Korean. And I'm saying to myself, wait a second. This guy was right by his side the whole time. And that, of course, we know now, the late Grandmaster Seraph, Mr. Seraph back then. So that was my introduction. And then within 2 years, I'm studying with General Choi at Houston, Grandmaster in Min School at the first seminar. But that's the way it was back then. Very, very rudimentary. No ITF tournaments. No ITF tournaments. And I bet you, I don't know this for a fact, and ask your USTF friends, I bet you the seniors back then, the tournaments they were doing were the karate stop matches.
Yes, sir, they were.
I would be curious to see when they started using ITF rules with, you know, the continuous sparring. Because I found the ITF continuous sparring rules back in the 1965 book. It's in the back, in the appendix. So we always were that, but the Koreans didn't do that. That's the difference. And now we have several tournaments throughout the United States under very good, strict ITF rules. So I think that's a big improvement. We didn't have that. So, but those are some of the important ones. Kang Young-il, Lee Yu-sun, Kang Young-il's brother, Kang Young-bo. We said Nam Tae-hee, Han Cha-kyo, Hyo Cho. Jun Ri was ITF for a while. Most of the others weren't ITF, but those figures faded because of the stigma with North Korea and the outreach to North Korea. So this is, I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, because I'm not demeaning is not the right word. I'm not trying to lessen their impact, but when it comes to ITF United States, Charles Seraph, that's the bottom line. And in the East Coast, James Murray. In the Chicago area, Greg Ustra. The Texas area, Fabian Nunes. You know, and in the Florida area, Mel Steiner. Even Jamaica, the influence, right? So what we know as ITF today, we have some very significant seniors living here. But Cho Sang-ming, another important one, a pioneer in Brazil, he was one of Park Chung-tae's teachers. He now lives in California, in the Korean area there, but he's not anything of ITF the United States. He was the main man of ITF in Korea and in Brazil. He came here in like retired status. So when you really want to look at what built ITF here, you have to look at people like Robert Walson. And oh geez, the other CIA guy from the DC area, Paul Thompson, I think his name, Thompson.
Tompkins.
No, not John Tompkins from the middle of the country, from Washington D.C. area. He was another KCIA man. I'm sorry, American CIA man. He was the one I got the you know, the light blue or the light gray.
Oh yeah, the Dobot.
Yeah, the old Dobot. Yes, sir.
You know, that was another thing. We couldn't buy ITF swag. There was no ITF trinkets. When I go to the World Champs in Budapest, I was buying keychains. Oh my God, you know, we didn't have that. So it was that's what the listeners to this, the viewers of this interview have to understand. It was totally different. If you're coming up today, you're blessed with seniors that did a lot of hard work in learning directly from General Choi. So it is the dichotomy is more than night and day. You know, it's almost caveman and afterwards Stone Age compared to the space age, you know? So it's a big difference, but it was, you know, 10 or 12 minutes doing warm-up exercises. Now that we know is probably counterproductive. Then it was an hour class. Everything was in a line, straight line, moving back and forth. And then there was 10, 15 minutes of basics. And in the basics, you'd step and kick, then turn around, go this way. You know, all this kind of, which is a direct copy of karate. And then there'd be a break. You come back, you line up with a partner. You do, in my school, we did 3-step and 1-step. I said, what happened to 2-step? I found out about 2-step when I went to Houston. Now, why did I only know 1-step and 3-step? Karate. That's the Oh Do Kwan that my teacher learned. We never did 2-step. I instituted that in my school. So, you know, these are the things that now, you know, we take for granted because it was there. Then we did kicking back and forth. Wasn't fighting, it was kicking back and forth. Then we lined up, we did the patterns. As you reached your pattern, you sat down. And in the last 5 minutes or so of the class, my teacher would call us up one or two at a time to spar each other. And maybe he'd have 2 groups going, you know, or 3 groups, but that was it. And you went home, was the same thing repeated. And when you promoted, you learned your new pattern and you did that. My teacher said, you only know front kick, side kick, roundhouse kick, punch. That's it. Do that faster and stronger. Do any of you people teach that? No. There's so much that we're teaching. We didn't have that. Yeah. We had minuscule. Right. And we had people. I talk too much, right? But I can speak English. You guys can understand English. My teacher grunted.
Very shortened directives. Yeah. More power. My instructor say. That's it.
Yes.
Some got hit with sticks. I know that was a thing.
You guys know Anderson Chan.
Oh, yes, sir.
Very talented, right?
Mm-hmm.
Creation of Grandmaster Fatagato. I didn't do anything with him except look and say, wow. Told him a couple of things. I think he said, who's this old dinosaur? Maybe he didn't listen. I have no idea. But when we tested him for 3rd degree, we invited my teacher. And I told him, Anderson, when you finish Juche, just key out. Don't say Juche.
Yeah.
So when he did it, he did, you know, no problem. And I said to my teacher, I said, oh, that's the pattern, you know what? Goes, oh, I heard about it. Very beautiful. I don't know if it's the first time he saw it, but I didn't have him announce the name of the pattern.
They're going to the politics of that.
Very, very safe.
Yeah. But that's the big thing that young people have to realize, the advantage now. Big advantage.
Yeah. Sure. Well, that's a great answer, sir. Thank you for getting so many names there of people that have influenced Taekwondo in the United States. And I have another one. I'm gonna get you. I know history.
Well, I'm gonna step out for just 1 second. I'll be right back.
Absolutely.
But keep going.
All right. So here's a photo. Important photo. There it is.
Around the table, yes.
And there's no caption in this particular version of the condensed. This is the last one. But here, I believe, is Colonel Nam.
Could be, yes.
And then right here is another individual.
Yes.
Sitting right to the right of General Che. That individual is this person.
Sun Duck Sun, correct. Yes.
Yes. And I know he was in New York.
Yep. Came here in early 60s.
So he sat on my 1st degree black belt test and my 2nd
no kidding
test. Yes.
Wow.
He was an intimidating individual.
Yes. Iconic figure.
I was wondering if you had any chance to talk to him ever in your time in New York and around there. If you ever had a chance to talk to him or anyone affiliated with him.
Yes.
And, there are some people that still do the Korean karate as he professed it to be. And so just get your thoughts on him. Okay.
So Grandmaster Sun Duck Sun, iconic figure. He was the 2nd Kwangjin Nim of the Oh Do Kwan, which was a very, very influential original Kwan. Now, original Kwan is only 5 of them. Oh Do Kwan is not an original Kwan. It is not an original Kwan. Original Kwan, we have to define terms. Another thing my senior, Grandmaster Earl Whites, has taught me. Before you debate, discuss, argue, you need to define your terms. Kwan is a school or group, right? Original means beginning, first, or whatever. And the definition by this is opened prior to 1950. Oh Do Kwan opened in 1954. It is not an original Kwan. So the first one to open was Song Mu Kwan in March of 1944. Oh Do Kwan was 2nd in September of 1944. Then
that's interesting. I thought Oh Do Kwan was first. I guess for some reason I always had heard Oh Do Kwan being the preeminent one, or maybe it was just the first civilian. Maybe. I don't know, but there was some. I always thought that where you said Sang
again. No, very good that you jumped in. That is what is commonly known. Now, again, ask me why I say Song Mu Kwan first. Well, because the Song Mu Kwan opened in an archery school in Kaesong, which is now literally wholly in the north. It's above the DMZ. Okay, Nobin Jik, who I met in Korea, he immigrated to Minnesota, passed away there. But I met him at the Taekwondo Wan when the South Korean government gave him and another one of the 9 Kwan founders a very special presidential award. So he opened in March of 1944. It didn't last. It didn't last. So it went under. Lee Won-guk opened in September of 1944. So who was first? Now, also that one didn't last because, you know, there was different things that happened and forced to shut down. There's a war. Then the occupation ended. So to me, there's no doubt that the Song Kwan opened first. It was not an influential gym. It did not have a lot of weight. It did not have the kind of impact that Chung Do Kwan did. Did not have the impact that Muda Kwan did. Did not have the impact that Jido Kwan did. And the Changmu Kwan also, of the original 5, probably is number 4. Song Kwan number 5 in impact. Chung Do Kwan number 1. Muda Kwan number 2. That could be interchangeable. You could even make a case Jido Kwan, because the Jido Kwan top guy, he's the one that basically created Kukiwan.
Yeah.
You understand? So a lot of influence.
Mm-hmm.
The whole emphasis in South Korea about sparring came from the Jido Kwan guys. So how then do you define influence? But Chung Do Kwan was very influential for us being ITF Taekwondo. We're the original Taekwondo. We're not an original Korean Karate Kwan. And you notice, I make a distinction. They're not Taekwondo Kwans. They are Korean Karate Kwans. Plain and simple. They're teaching karate, learned from Japanese sources, with some Chinese martial art influence mixed in. The Oh Do Kwan is a Korean Karate Kwan. But they, guess what? That's the womb of Taekwondo. That's where General Choi's Tang Soo Do morphed into Taekwondo. That was the womb of Taekwondo. That is the original Taekwondo Kwan. The Chung Do Kwan and Oh Do Kwan were very, very closely aligned. Why? Chung Do Kwan founder Lee Won-guk fled Korea to escape political persecution, just like General Choi did in 1972. He fled in 1950. And there's a lot of controversy about that, and I'm not ready to speak publicly about it. And I don't think Korea, it's so devastating. Well, Korea does not talk about this. The rumors that abound are so devastating, I can see why, even though I don't know if that's the motivation, because I don't know if the rumors are true, of why they wouldn't want to talk about this. General Choi alludes to it in his biography, and I'm not going to mention it. People interested, they can try and figure it out. What I can tell the world is that a writer researched this and included this in his book. The book was allowed to be printed, but not allowed to be circulated. A copy exists in the collection, either the personal collection or the library at one of the major Taekwondo universities in South Korea. Once I can get that and get it translated, then I can release it. Right now, it's speculation, and I'm not going to speculate terrible things about somebody. So be that as it may, Chung Do Kwan was very important because Lee Won-guk asked General Choi to oversee the Chung Do Kwan when he left. He built a very good relationship with Sun Duck-sun. He used Sun Duck-sun students at the Chung Do Kwan to staff the Oh Do Kwan. The two had a falling out. And if you're familiar with the falling out, are you?
I am somewhat, yes, with the letter.
Yes, okay.
Published in the 4th.
Now, the reason I asked this is because this is important. Detractors of General Choi, there are people that hate him. It's the Hatfields and McCoys, right? WTF, ITF, right? Hatfields and McCoys exist today. They still might not be talking, but guess what? They don't know what the original cause of the disagreement was. And none of the Hatfields and McCoys today were involved in that. Today, you have Americans still hate General Choi that were fed disgusting rhetoric from their seniors because of the hatred they had to General Choi. They never met General Choi, never trained under him, probably never read any of his writings, never saw the genius of the man, the gift that he gave to mankind, the entire world. They just hate him because they were told to hate him. And that article is not really an article, it's an advertisement that Sun Duc-sun paid for to be printed in a major publication in South Korea. In that, he expels 3 of the most prominent members of the Chung Do Kwan. He canceled General Choi's honorary rank and refused to give him his 6th degree. And they use this as a basis for poo-pooing General Choi. What they don't know, and again, my senior Grandmaster Earl Weiss brought this to my attention, the notification was printed in the paper after Sun Duc-sun was kicked out of the Chung Do Kwan by his own teacher, number 1. Number 2, the notice was dated after he was kicked out. So this is hard feelings. This is payback. And again, he wants to get back at these people. No problem. No problem. Again, it's factual. They orchestrated him getting out, and he had resentment. No problem. I have no problem with hard feelings. But understand that the hard feelings is what causing all this, and understand that what he did actually has no impact. It couldn't take effect because he was kicked out, not by the 3 traitors, by his own teacher. His own teacher replaced him. Now, why was Sun Duc-sun and General Choi now at loggerheads? Sun Duc-sun, and I tried to interview him. His students would not allow it. The gatekeepers wouldn't allow it.
That's too bad.
I met him at his school. We went up with the filmmaker, the cameras and everything, you know. We had just, you know, surface conversations. Our paths crossed in local tournaments, but nothing that I can relay that I got from him, I can relate to you guys. It sadly never happened. So this guy was upset because something happened in 1959, February, March 1959. Historic. The first Korean Taekwondo demonstration team ever to travel abroad and demonstrate Taekwondo happened in February, March 1959. It was a military Taekwondo demonstration team. Sun Duc-sun wanted to go. General Choi said, impossible. Sun Duc-sun in that same article doesn't say he wanted to go and General Choi didn't let him. He said General Choi didn't consult him in staffing the team. Well, it's a military thing. Why do I have to staff a civilian? These people are in the military. I have the program. Their military serial numbers are all there. See, but again, if you don't understand what's going on, you can get taken by all the manipulation, the slander, the mudslinging that is tossed out. And I just heard in all the stuff going on in the United States politics, I just heard just the other day, a historian was talking about the Peloponnesian Wars, 2,000 years ago? And a philosopher back then said, people believe, generally speaking, people believe the first thing they're told. And back then, I guess they're told, oh, we're winning or whatever. And it was a disaster. But people believe that. People generally tend to believe what they first learned. So people believe that Sun Duc-sun was this whatever and boom, but they don't understand what's going on. They don't understand the business. They don't understand it had no impact. And I've been very vocal in pointing this out. Why did Lee Won-guk flee to Japan? And they say, the story goes, oh, he was electric rods on his testicles. They were tortured. Yeah, maybe they were tortured prior to this Korean Civil War to get the members of the Chung Do Kwan to work to elect the president or re-elect the president, right? Or his party. That all could be true, but that's not why he fled, because they weren't doing that to him during the Korean War. Something happened during the Korean War that Sun Duc-sun fled to Japan. Sorry, Lee Won-guk fled to Japan. And then General Choi and Grandmaster Lee Yu-sun and others have told me this. General Choi's influence, he's a very dominating person. He now was basically running the Chung Do Kwan. And he was minimizing the role of the boss of the Chung Do Kwan, Sun Duc-sun. This is his livelihood. his calligraphy is there, and all, you know, he's starting to create his own patterns. Remember, the 1959 book had 5 patterns. So he gets kicked out of the Chung Do Kwan by his teacher, and who General Choi orchestrated that. And the 3 people he kicked out, Am Young-gu was the 2nd president of the Kukiwon, very influential person, big in WTF Taekwondo, and Nam Tae-hee, look what an iconic figure he was. These guys never got kicked out; they stayed there. And the third one, Hun Myung-jin, he was General Choi sent him to. So the WTF president, Dr. Cho Jung-wan, his father founded Kyunghee University. General Choi sent that guy there to be the first instructor back in the 50s. So see, they all were sucking up to General Choi because he was the power broker. That's why Lee Won-guk wanted him to, you know, it was a match made in heaven. But once Sun Duck-sun was being minimized, he fought back. And now, what happened to him? He left Korea and came to New York in the early 60s. He played no part in ITF, WTF, nothing. He was very successful in his own little group. And I got very close to one of his top students. I was invited to one of their annual picnics. I've got to know some of them over the years and corresponding on social media and the internet and whatnot. So he's a fascinating person. You should be very honored to be able to point to the fact that he was on your panel. You heard the name Kwang Jae-hwa, the pioneer that went to Germany. My teacher didn't have money to get my first degree certificate right away. I got it eventually with the same date, but he gave me a little certificate, Kwang Jae-hwa. I have it laminated on wood. I'm very proud of it. And I had no idea who he was. Now I found out who he was, and I said, oh, you know, I have certificates now from Colonel Nam, you know, so that's a great thing. But Sun Duck-sun, pivotally important person in the Korean karate world, as you pointed out, his book, even, I mean, that's, you know,
that's what we had.
He did eventually follow along with the Taekwondo term because it became so popular.
Yes.
Yeah, but very important person. But that's how that hard feeling started, and his teacher Lee Won-guk, Nam Tae-hee, had come to the first ITF World Championship in Montreal in '74, and he got pissed. I think it was Grandmaster Park Jun-soo got him really upset. Said something about, you're not Taekwondo, you're karate, or something like that. And he insisted Nam Tae-hee take him to the airport right away and get him the first flight. They went to the airport, no internet, no book a flight. They, you know, to leave early. So, you know, but again, these are wait, one thing I'm remiss. Kang Soo-chung was vice president of ITF in the 80s. General Choi considered him a possible successor as ITF president. He opened the first school in Brooklyn in 1969. My teacher opened the second. He was a very influential teaching. He was the actual head of the ATA, the first president, even though he wasn't the brains behind it or the business people starting it. And when the ATA went its own separate way, he formed the ATF to stay under the ITF. Then eventually he had to leave when General Choi did the whole thing to North Korea. Yeah, so he was, I would be remiss, because he was not only, he was more senior to Sun Duck-sun, he was a main player in the ITF up until the outreach to the North.
Very good. Well, I know that Master Fruitstone has a question that has to do with the future, and I want to finish on that. So if you wouldn't mind, Master Fruitstone, I had one other quick question here. Well, I got two questions. One has to do with, because we're talking about the Kwans there a little bit. One was the Oh Do Kwan, and in the Encyclopedia, General Che gives a translation of that as Gym of My Way. We know that Chung Do Kwan was the Blue Wave Gym.
Right.
But I wanted to see if you have a better translation and understanding of what the Oh Do Kwan was. And this is the second question, which has to do with the WTF and the ITF. I know you were there for a lot of the battles, right? The battles between the ITF and the WTF. And I wanted to ask you who you think won the war between them, or is the battle is it still going on? So those are the two kind of questions. And then Master Fruitstone, I think I don't. You had the last question about the future, which I think would be a great way for us to finish up. So if that's okay,
Sure.
those are my two questions. A little bit about. Do you have any more insight about what does that mean? What does Oh Do Kwan mean?
Okay, so first, the easy question: WTF won the war?
WTF won the war. Yes.
No question. WT won the war. No
Yeah.
question. No question. Then again, it depends how you define the war. The race to the Olympics, global dominance, whatever. So there's no question WTF won the war. They are struggling very hard, and we're holding on to the last gem they want. They want to have a national group in North Korea. That's what they want. And we're not willing to give that unless the payback is quite substantial. So they have definitely won the war. ITF people have to understand that. You're the first, you're the original, you're the martial arts side, however you want to spin that, fine. Understand, if you're talking about Taekwondo as a competition sport, a martial sport, the way to the Olympics is through the WTF. It's not going to change. I've been at the table with members from all three ITFs where some of them actually think the ITF is going to supplant the WT. WT is a beloved federation. Within the last 2 or 3 years, they won Federation of the Year. They get accolades for humanitarian work, the Peace Corps, refugee. You forget, gentlemen, and ladies, because I know there's gentlemen on the screen, but ladies, this is the 21st century. The Olympics is not about sports. It's about humanity, bringing people together using sports as the vehicle. So if you think that the IOC looks at WT Taekwondo Olympic sparring as boring, whether they do or not, I don't know, and I could care less, because that's not what they're looking at. So just understand they won the war. Number two, Oh Do Kwan. I always assume Jim of my way, General Choi is this authoritarian figure. No. Namte, he explained, with the calligraphy letters to Grandmaster Earl Weiss. You're drafted because conscription is mandatory for Korean males in South Korea. So it's mandatory service. You go in no matter what. So General Choi is now staffed his Oh Do Kwan primarily with Chung Do Kwan instructors, but he's teaching now this throughout not only the ROK Army, but the whole military. He established in 1959 the martial arts department in the military. So this is a big deal. So when people come to you from all different walks of life, like you come to my house, so on your way up, you stop in Merritt Island, right? You come, stay by me, whatever, right? I think there's something coming on. You had something in Fort Lauderdale just recently, and there's something coming on in Daytona, I think, right?
St. Augustine in August.
St. Augustine, there you go, right? So, you come in, you want to fly into Orlando, I'm an hour from there, whatever, right? So when you come to my home, it's my home, right? But what do I say to you? This is your home. Feel at home, right? So my home becomes your home. So you can say when you're in my home, that's your home. You're in my place in Brooklyn, in New York, or in Florida, you're in your home. That's your home. So when you're in the military and now you're training martial arts in the military Kwan, that's your home. So it's my home from the individual soldier, the military personnel. I can feel comfortable being here. All are welcome.
Yes.
And along those lines, Grandmaster C.K. Choi, Choi Chang-kyun, the one who devised the tree logo, and phenomenal. I didn't meet Han Chak-kyo, but J.C. Kim, Woo Jung Jung, and J.C. Kim, the most giving one. You cannot, and I know there are others that are missing, but these three prominent ITF people, I feel bad that I didn't meet Grandmaster Han Chak-kyo. Spoken to his daughter in getting her father recognized and whatnot, but very giving people. Grandmaster C.K. Choi told me Taekwondo is the world's first mixed martial art. And it was. And it's not MMA like we know today. It was, as he said, a consolidation. They're in the military. All these people, wrestling, judo, boxing, you name it, karate, Chinese influence, whatever. I think Grandmaster Rikiha's father was a sumo wrestler or something, I forget. But, they had all these influences. And their part in the military was building things that were effective on the battlefield, hand-to-hand combat. So what worked, they incorporated. What they didn't, they discarded. So it is not an MMA in today's sense, but it is something that was a mix. And that's what the gift of the Oh Do Kwan is, right? 5 original Korean karate Kwans. Then you had the 6 early Kwans, which I add in the Oh Do Kwan. Why? Because 1959, when General Choi forms the first Korean Taekwondo Association, he did that under the auspices of the Korean Amateur Sports Association. And the others said, he's not one of the original Kwans. And the director of the Sports Association said, wait a second, that's true. He's not one of the original Kwans, but he was teaching in the military from the 40s and 50s. So he has to be at the table. So that's why I came up with the term, the 6 early Kwans. But Oh Do Kwan's the first Taekwondo Kwan, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Then, the Cheongdo Kwan split, the Jido Kwan split, and the Muda Kwan split. So those 3 splits, along with the Oh Do Kwan, 6, right? 5 plus 1 is 6. And the other 3 are the 9 Kwans that were retired, retired, and rolled into the Kukiwan in 1978. So that's how I would address what is the Oh Do Kwan, what it means.
Excellent.
And I believe today's ITF Taekwondo should be the same thing. General Choi took people to train karate. He welcomed them in. They adopted. They switched. That's the way we should be. We should have an open door policy, because you cannot build a more peaceful world if you don't have it. You're not embracing people.
Yeah.
I think it's terrible. You want to hold the line at World Championships, fine. A World Cup should be open to anybody. Anybody. Even outside martial artists. It's an opportunity to you to broadcast. It's a sales pitch. Why would you not do that? That closed-mindedness has to end.
I completely agree with you. I couldn't agree.
Yeah,
with you.
Master Young and I have been around this so many times, sir.
Yep.
We are absolutely in agreement. So you can't have the best of everybody if you don't have everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes part 2 of 3. Great coverage of the history and development with some name drops of people in the United States, as well as a discussion of the Kwans, original Kwans, and WT Olympic Taekwondo. We will finish up with some discussion of the future with Grandmaster Vitale. Thanks for sticking with us, and hope you've enjoyed it so far.